April 2017, East Sea of Japan. 300 hours. The USS Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group receives orders to cancel port visits in Australia. Reverse course. Head north. Destination: the Korean Peninsula. On March 6th, North Korea had launched 4 ballistic missiles, simultaneously a demonstration of capability and intent. 1 month later, they're preparing for their 6th nuclear test. Intelligence confirms the test site is ready. Tunnels have been excavated. Monitoring equipment detected. Kim Jong-un has publicly vowed to conduct the test, regardless of international condemnation. And on April 14th, North Korea issues a warning through state media. If the US dares to provoke us with military force, we will respond with nuclear strikes. Any carrier approaching our waters will be sunk immediately. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The message is clear. Stay away or face annihilation. 3 days later, the USS Carl Vinson crosses into the waters North Korea claims as its military operation zone. For the next 2 weeks, 6,500 American sailors will operate within range of North Korean missiles, submarines, and artillery. Every morning, they'll watch North Korean surveillance aircraft circle overhead. Every night, they'll track patrol boats probing the carrier's defenses. This is the story of the most dangerous carrier deployment since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The hidden confrontation that brought the US and North Korea to the brink of war. And what really happens when American resolve collides with a nuclear-armed regime that doesn't bluff. To understand why the Carl Vinson deployment was so dangerous, you need to understand North Korea. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, North Korea is the most isolated, militarized, and unpredictable nation on Earth. It's ruled by Kim Jong-un, the third-generation dictator of the Kim dynasty. His grandfather, Kim Il-sung, founded the nation in 1948. His father, Kim Jong-il, inherited power in 1994. And when Kim Jong-il died in 2011, Kim Jong-un, just 27 years old, took control. Since then, he's consolidated power through purges, executions, and relentless propaganda. He's also accelerated North Korea's nuclear weapons program at a staggering pace. 2013, third nuclear test. 2016, 2 nuclear tests, the 4th and 5th. 2017, 6th nuclear test, estimated yield of 250 kilotons, 15 times larger than Hiroshima. But nuclear weapons are only part of the threat. North Korea has developed intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching the US mainland. Hwasong-15, tested in 2017, has an estimated range of 8,000 miles, enough to hit Washington, D.C. And they're not stopping. Every few months, North Korea conducts missile tests. Sometimes they fail spectacularly. Sometimes they succeed. But each test brings them closer to perfecting their delivery systems. The international community has responded with sanctions, UN-Security Council resolutions, diplomatic isolation, but none of it has worked. Because North Korea doesn't care about sanctions, they care about survival. And in their calculation, only one thing guarantees survival: nuclear weapons. This creates a strategic dilemma for the United States. Option 1, accept North Korea as a nuclear power, live with the threat, hope they never use the weapons. Option 2, preemptive military strike, destroy the nuclear program before it's fully operational. But here's the problem with option 2, Seoul. Seoul, South Korea, city of 10 million people, sits 35 miles from the North Korean border, within range of 8,000 artillery pieces dug into mountains along the DMZ. If the US strikes North Korea strikes Seoul. Within the first hour, tens of thousands could die. Maybe more. This is called the hostage city scenario, and it's why every US president since the 1990s has chosen option 1, containment. But in 2017, something changed. President Donald Trump signaled he was willing to consider option 2. In August 2017, he warned North Korea would face fire and fury like the world has never seen if they continued threatening the US. North Korea responded by announcing plans to launch missiles near Guam, US territory. Tensions spiraled. War seemed imminent. And that's when the Pentagon ordered the Carl Vinson North. April 8, 2017, Pacific Command Headquarters, Hawaii. Admiral Harry Harris, commander of U.S. Pacific Command, briefs senior officials on North Korea's latest provocations. The intelligence is alarming. Satellite imagery shows increased activity at the Punggye nuclear test site. North Korea is preparing to test a thermonuclear weapon, hydrogen bomb. Kim Jong-un has ordered the test to coincide with the April 15th celebration of his grandfather's birthday. A successful hydrogen bomb test would be a game-changer. It would mean North Korea could fit a nuclear warhead on an ICBM and strike the US mainland. The question, how does the US respond? Option 1, diplomatic protest. The usual UN Security Council condemnation, more sanctions that won't work. Option 2, show of force. Deploy a carrier strike group to the region. Send a message, we're watching and we're ready. President Trump chooses option 2. The USS Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group, which includes the carrier, to guided missile destroyers, and a guided missile cruisers diverted from its scheduled port visit to Australia. New orders, proceed to the Sea of Japan. Conduct military exercises with South Korean and Japanese forces, and make it very, very visible. The Pentagon releases a statement. The Carl Vinson Strike Group will operate in the Western Pacific, rather than executing previously planned port visits to Australia. Translation: we're sending a carrier to North Korea's doorstep. But North Korea isn't intimidated, they're enraged. On April 11th, North Korea's state-run news agency issues a statement. Our revolutionary forces are combat ready to sink the US nuclear-powered aircraft carrier with a single strike. The Trump administration should consider the catastrophic consequences of military action. On April 14th, North Korea declares a military operation zone in the waters off its coast, a no-sail, no-fly zone. Any vessel or aircraft entering without permission will be treated as hostile. Under international law, this declaration is meaningless. North Korea's territorial waters extend only 12 nautical miles from shore. Beyond that is international waters, where the US Navy has every right to operate. But North Korea doesn't care about international law. They care about sovereignty, pride, and the perception of strength. And now, the Carl Vinson is about to test their resolve. April 25th, 2017, 06:00 hours. The USS Carl Vinson crosses latitude 38 north, the unofficial boundary of North Korea's declared operation zone. On the carrier's bridge, Captain Trevor Estes watches the horizon. The mood is tense, alert. This isn't a routine patrol. This is a deliberate provocation, a calculated risk, and everyone knows it. The Carl Vinson isn't alone. The strike group includes USS Wayne E. Meyer, DDG-108, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer equipped with Aegis missile defense, USS Michael Murphy, DDG-112, another destroyer specialized in anti-submarine warfare, USS Lake Champlain, CG-57, a Taekwondo-class cruiser with SM-3 interceptor missiles. These escorts aren't just for show. They're the carrier's shield, because North Korea has weapons that can reach the Carl Vinson. North Korea operates a fleet of approximately 70 submarines, mostly aging Romeo and Sango class boats. They're old, noisy, easy to detect under normal circumstances. But in shallow, coastal waters, exactly where the Carl Vinson is operating, diesel-electric submarines can be deadly. They sit on the bottom, engines off, waiting. And when they move, they're hard to track. North Korea also has anti-ship cruise missiles. The Kumsong-3, based on Chinese and Russian designs, has a range of 100 miles. Launched from coastal batteries, these missiles could target the carrier before it even sees the launch site. And then there's the nuclear wildcard. Intelligence suggests North Korea may have miniaturized nuclear warheads small enough to fit on a missile. One nuclear-tipped missile hitting the carrier would be catastrophic, not just for the ship, but for global stability. The Carl Vinson is sailing into a potential kill zone, and everyone aboard knows it. At 0700 hours, the Combat Information Center (CIC) reports first contact. Captain, radar contact bearing 350 degrees, range 40 nautical miles. Track is consistent with North Korean patrol aircraft. An AN to Colton Ancient, Soviet-era biplane used by North Korea for surveillance and light attack. Slow, obsolete, but capable of carrying bombs or torpedoes. The AN-2 circles at a distance, watching, reporting back to Pyongyang. At 0930 hours, more contacts. Captain, multiple surface contacts. Small patrol boats, range 15 miles, closing. North Korean patrol boats, fast attack craft armed with torpedoes and anti-ship missiles, moving toward the carrier group. Not aggressively, not on an intercept course, but close enough to send a message. We see you, we're tracking you, and we can reach you. The rules of engagement are clear. The Carl Vinson will not fire unless fired upon. But if North Korea launches an attack, the response will be immediate and overwhelming. Fighter jets are kept on alert 5 status ready to launch within 5 minutes. Missile batteries are armed. Sonar operators listen for submarines. And in the CIC offices monitor intelligence feeds from the National Security Agency, tracking North Korean military communications. What they hear is chilling. North Korean military channels are broadcasting mobilization orders. Artillery units along the DMZ are being moved to forward positions. Missile batteries are being fueled. North Korea is preparing for war. Or at least, they want the US to think they are. April 26, 2017, 0300 hours. The USS Michael Murphy, operating 20 miles ahead of the carrier, detects an anomaly on sonar. A faint mechanical transient, the sound of a submarine's hull compressing as it changes depth. The sonar operator keys the intercom. Sonar. Possible submarine contact. Bearing 020, range 8,000 yards. 8,000 yards. That's 4.5 miles. The commanding officer arrives in the sonar room within seconds. Classify the contact. The sonar operator listens intently, adjusting filters, isolating frequencies. Diesel-electric, likely North Korean Romeo class. Contact is stationary, possibly sitting on the bottom. This is a submarine tactic called bottom sitting. The submarine shuts down all non-essential systems, sits on the ocean floor, and waits. No propulsion noise, minimal acoustic signature, nearly invisible, and it's within torpedo range. A Romeo-class submarine carries 8 torpedoes, range 10 kilometers, 5.4 miles. If the submarine launches, the torpedoes could reach the carrier in approximately 6 minutes. The Michael Murphy's captain makes the call. Go active. Prosecute the contact. Active sonar is a double-edged sword. It reveals the submarine's location, but it also reveals the destroyer's location. It's loud, aggressive, and in tense situations, it can be interpreted as a prelude to attack. But there's no choice. The submarine must be localized, tracked, and if necessary destroyed. Ping. The active sonar pulse radiates through the water. The sound wave hits the submarine's hull and bounces back. Contact confirmed. Submarine, ranged 4.2 miles. Depth, 180 feet. Stationary. The Michael Murphy maneuvers to maintain sonar contact. An MH-60R helicopter is scrambled from the carrier, carrying Mk-54 torpedoes and sonobuoys. The helicopter drops a pattern of sonobuoys around the submarine's location, creating an acoustic net. The submarine is now being tracked by multiple censorship, sonar, helicopter sonar, sonobuoys. It has nowhere to hide. For the next 4 hours, the Michael Murphy maintains contact. The submarine doesn't move, it doesn't surface, it doesn't launch. But its presence is a message. We're here, we can get close, and you didn't detect us until we wanted you to. Finally, at 070 hours, the submarine moves. It rises to periscope depth, briefly then dives, and heads back toward North Korean coastal waters. The crisis passes, but the point is made. North Korea has proven they can penetrate the carrier's defensive screen. They can get within striking distance, and the US Navy's sensors aren't perfect. In the CIC, officers conduct an after-action review. How did the submarine get so close? Was it a failure of sonar coverage? Poor positioning of escort ships? Or is North Korean submarine technology better than intelligence assessments suggest? The answers are classified. But one thing is clear. The Carl Vinson is more vulnerable than anyone wants to admit. April 27th to 29th, 2017. The Carl Vinson conducts joint military exercises with South Korean and Japanese forces. These exercises are designed to demonstrate interoperability, the ability of Allied forces to fight together, but they're also a show of force. The exercises include live-fire drills. FA-18 Super Hornets drop precision-guided munitions on floating targets. Air defense drills. Aegis destroyers track and simulate intercepts of ballistic missiles. Anti-submarine warfare. Helicopters and destroyers hunt simulated submarine targets. Every sortie, every missile launch, every maneuver is visible to North Korean surveillance. And North Korea responds. On April 29th, North Korea conducts a ballistic missile test. A Hwasong-12 intermediate-range missile is launched from near Pukang airfield. It flies 450 miles before splashing down in the Sea of Japan well, within the operational area of the Carl Vinson. The message: you're in range. We can hit you. But here's what doesn't happen. North Korea doesn't target the carrier. The missile flies over the strike group's position, but it's not aimed at the ships. It's a demonstration, a warning. In the White House Situation Room, officials debate the response. Is the missile test an escalation? Should the US conduct a retaliatory strike? National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster argues for restraint. A military response now could trigger the exact war we're trying to prevent. North Korea wants us to overreact. President Trump agrees reluctantly, no immediate retaliation, but the Carl Vinson stays. And over the next week, the psychological warfare intensifies. The Carl Vinson conducts round-the-clock flight operations. FA-18s and EA-18G Growlers electronic warfare aircraft fly close to North Korean airspace, testing their radar systems, mapping their air defenses. North Korea scrambles MiG-29 fighters in response. The jets don't cross into international airspace, but they fly close, dangerously close. On April 30th, a North Korean MiG-29 comes within 10 miles of a US Navy EA-18G Growler. The American pilot can see the North Korean aircraft on his radar. The North Korean pilot can undoubtedly see the Growler. For a moment, they're locked in a silent standoff at 20,000 feet. Both armed, both capable of firing, both waiting for the other to make the wrong move. The Growler turns away first, not out of fear, but out of professionalism. Escalation serves no purpose, but the incident is reported, logged, analyzed. Both sides are probing, testing, waiting for the other to make a mistake. And then, on May 1st, something changes. North Korea goes silent. May 1st to 7th, 2017. North Korean military communications drop dramatically. No more mobilization orders. No more threats broadcast on state media. No more patrol boats harassing the carrier group. Intelligence analysts scramble to understand why. Has North Korea backed down? Are they preparing for something bigger? Or is this a tactical pause? The Carl Vinson maintains its patrol. Flight operations continue. Escorts remain vigilant. But the North Korean presence has diminished. On May 3rd, satellite imagery reveals something interesting. North Korean military units along the DMZ are standing down. Artillery pieces are being moved back from forward positions. Missile batteries are being defueled. It appears North Korea is de-escalating. But why? The CIA provides an assessment. North Korea has made its point. They've demonstrated their willingness to confront US military power. They've shown their population that Kim Jong-un is standing up to American aggression. And most importantly, they've avoided a war they can't win. Kim Jong-un is many things, but he's not suicidal. He understands that attacking a US carrier would guarantee his regime's destruction. The US response would be overwhelming airstrikes on North Korean military installations, regime targets in Pyongyang, possibly even nuclear command and control facilities. North Korea's military might be large, but it's antiquated. Most equipment dates from the 1960s and 70s. Their air force has fewer than 100 combat-ready aircraft, many of them obsolete MiG-17s and MiG-21s. Their navy is coastal defense at best. Against the full weight of US military power carrier strike groups, stealth bombers, cruise missiles, and ground forces, North Korea would be obliterated within days. Kim Jong-un knows this. His generals know this. And the entire regime knows this. So instead of escalating, North Korea escalates. They save face by claiming victory, broadcasting propaganda that the carrier was driven away by North Korean strength. It's absurd, but it works domestically. The alternative, admitting they backed down, would be politically unacceptable. May 14th, 2017. Just when it seems the crisis is over, North Korea conducts another missile test. A Hwasong-12 intermediate-range ballistic missile is launched from Kusong, North Pyongan province. It flies higher and farther than any previous North Korean missile, reaching an altitude of 1,312 miles and traveling 489 miles before splashing down in the Sea of Japan. The trajectory is significant. If launched on a standard trajectory instead of a lofted one, this missile could reach Guam, US territory with major military installations. This is North Korea's message. We didn't back down. We're still here, and we're still advancing our capabilities. But once again, they don't target the Carl Vinson. They don't attack US forces. They conduct a test provocative, illegal, under UN resolutions, but not an act of war. The US response is measured. President Trump tweets, "North Korea has just launched another missile. Does this guy have anything better to do with his life?" It's dismissive, almost mocking, but it signals something important. The US is not going to be provoked into military action by missile tests alone, and with that, the crisis begins to wind down. On May 30th, the Carl Vinson departs the Sea of Japan. The carrier strike group heads south towards Singapore for a scheduled port visit. The deployment is over, but nothing has been resolved. North Korea still has nuclear weapons. They're still testing missiles. They're still threatening the United States and its allies. But for 2 weeks in April and May 2017, the world stood on the brink of war, and both sides chose barely to step back. The Carl Vinson deployment accomplished its mission. It demonstrated American resolve. It reassured allies. It showed North Korea that the US Navy would not be intimidated by threats. But it also revealed the terrifying fragility of deterrence. One miscalculation, one rogue submarine captain, one North Korean commander who interprets a radar track as an incoming attack, one American pilot who mistakes a MiG's maneuver as hostile. Any of these could have sparked a shooting war. And once the shooting starts, there's no guarantee it stops before nuclear weapons are used. This is the reality of the Korean Peninsula, a permanent state of neo-war, where threats are made, forces are deployed, and both sides play a deadly game of chicken, hoping the other side blinks first. So far, both sides have blinked eventually. But the question isn't whether North Korea will test American resolve again. The question is, what happens the next time when neither side blinks? There's a concept in military strategy called brinksmanship, the art of pushing a confrontation to the edge of disaster to force the other side to back down. The Carl Vinson deployment was textbook brinksmanship. The US sent its most valuable military asset into range of North Korean weapons, daring them to act. North Korea responded with threats, missile tests, and submarine patrols pushing back without crossing into open conflict. Both sides played the game. Both sides won and lost simultaneously. But here's the terrifying truth. Brinksmanship only works if both sides are rational. If both sides understand the stakes. If both sides have something to lose. And that's the nightmare scenario with North Korea. Kim Jong-un is unpredictable. His regime operates in isolation, with limited checks on his power. And his nuclear arsenal gives him a weapon of last resort, a way to inflict catastrophic damage, even in defeat. Every time a US carrier enters waters near North Korea, it's a calculated gamble. A bet that Kim Jong-un will choose regime survival over nuclear Armageddon. So far, that bet has paid off. Every time, but the Korean Peninsula remains the most dangerous place on Earth. Where 70 years of unresolved conflict, nuclear weapons, and great power competition converge. Where a miscommunication, a technical failure, or a moment of miscalculation could ignite a war that kills millions. North Korea declared a no-fly, no-sail zone. The carrier group entered anyway, not because the risk was acceptable, but because the alternative, letting North Korea dictate terms through nuclear blackmail, was worse. This is the burden of American military power. The responsibility to stand firm, even when standing firm could spark catastrophe. The sailors aboard the Carl Vinson didn't choose this mission. They followed orders. They trusted their training. And they sailed into North Korean waters knowing they might not sail out. That's the reality of deterrence. It requires courage, discipline, and the willingness to risk everything to prevent the unthinkable. Because the moment America stops sailing through contested waters, the moment a carrier turns back because of threats is the moment deterrence collapses. And in that moment, the world becomes a far more dangerous place. This is the story of the carrier group that defied North Korea, the hidden crisis of 2017, and the ongoing standoff any moment explode into war.